So welcome to part 2, which is emotional maturity. In part 1, emotional availability, I made the case that what we really want in a partner isn't emotional availability so much as responsibility. That emotional regulation is an inside job, and that the healthy alternative to rescuing or blaming is co-regulation between two willing partners who each hold their own balance. Part 2 is a continuation of that idea. I ended part 1 with a question that sounds almost like a trick. If regulating your emotions is an inside job, how do you get better at it? We treat feelings like weather. They blow in, they blow out, and we're just standing in the field getting rained on. But what if your emotional life is less like weather and more like a garden? Something you can, over time, actually cultivate. That's the whole idea behind emotional maturity. And the good news, if you're willing to hear it, is that maturity isn't a prize that age eventually hands you. Plenty of people get older without getting wiser about their inner lives. Maturity is a set of skills, which means it can be learned, starting now at whatever age you're watching this. In his book, The Abolition of Man, C.S. Lewis argues that a well-ordered person isn't someone who has no feelings, nor someone ruled by their feelings, but someone whose emotions have been trained to respond rightly to the world, what he refers to as stable sentiments. The feeling, more specifically, your emotional interpretation of that feeling, matches the situation that produced the feeling. You feel roughly what the moment actually calls for, no more and no less. So I want you to sit with that word, trained. It implies emotions aren't just involuntary flashes we're stuck reacting to. They can be schooled, shaped, brought into proportion over time, the way you train to play a sport or an instrument, not suppressed and not white-knuckled into silence, but actually trained. So how do you train an emotion? Well, you start with the single most important question in this entire two-part series. Who's actually in charge of how you feel? And here's the hinge. Where is your locus of control? So, psychologists talk about your locus of control, whether you experience the center of gravity of your life as inside you or outside you. If your locus is external, then your emotional state is at the mercy of everything you can't control. Traffic, weather, the tone of someone's text, whether your partner did the thing you wanted in the way you wanted it done. You've handed the remote control of your inner life to the whole world and asked it, pretty please, to press the right buttons. But it won't. It can't. And so you live reactive, braced, perpetually one inconvenience or controversy away from a bad day. You've ceded authority over your own experience, which means, and this is the hard part, you're no longer really in control of your life at all. An internal locus of control is the opposite posture. It's the quiet, radical decision that I am responsible for my emotional state. Not to blame. Responsibility and blame are not the same thing. This isn't, it's my fault I feel bad, it's mine to tend and take care of. And the moment you take ownership of it, something remarkable happens. You get it back. You can train it. You can regulate on your own when you're alone and co-regulate with a trusted partner or friend when you're together. By keeping responsibility for your emotions, you keep authority over them, and therefore over the felt texture of your whole existence. That is not a small thing. In fact, it just may be the entire thing. Here's what keeps this from being a one-time achievement. You never arrive. Emotional maturity isn't a level you clear like in a video game. It develops across a whole life, if you let it. The thing that stops it is a fixed mindset, and its close cousin, an ego that wants you to behave today exactly as you did yesterday. Thank you very much. No growth required. But if you and your partner both hold the opposite conviction, that you're each a work in progress and that ongoing growth is the point, then you get to do something rare. You get to chart the course together, comparing notes as you go, two people intentionally maturing side by side instead of drifting apart. And co-regulation stops being some clinical technique and becomes just how you love each other. It is completely normal and honestly optimal to want to steady yourself in the presence of your life partner. This should be something you're both eager for, not embarrassed by. So how does it actually happen? Presence. Real, undistracted, devoted attention. Active listening. The kind where you're asking questions and seeking to understand, not just waiting to reply. Non-sexual physical contact. A hand on the back, a long hug that outlasts the awkwardness, and yes, of course, sexual connection too, assuming mutual consent and enthusiastic willingness on both sides. That definitely works too. Part of emotional maturity is being willing to walk toward the hard conversation instead of away from it. To stay open and receptive, not defensive or reactive or volatile. Matthew Hussey makes a point that I love. A difficult conversation done well should bring two people closer together, not drive them apart. And that's the whole test. If every time your partner tries to open a real conversation, you hear an attack, if you meet their bid for understanding with defensiveness or an emotional eruption, then don't be surprised when, one day, they simply stop trying. People don't keep knocking on a door that consistently gets slammed in their face. And remember, intimacy runs on exactly these conversations. A working definition of intimacy is to know and be known. You cannot be known by someone who won't let you in, and you cannot let them in without conversations that occasionally scare you. Determining how these conversations are to take place is the working on the relationship as opposed to merely living in it. I've described this in my other work as dialogue or dialogos, which means to see through to meaning. Most couples genuinely want this. They want to know and be known. They're just not very good at it, and it feels too tender to admit that they need help learning. So let me say it plainly. Hiring a coach or a counselor to teach two people how to dance together is not a sign that the marriage is failing. It's a sign the marriage is being taken seriously. We get coached for everything else we care about. Sports, business, communication, our kids' grades. I mean, why not this? Alain de Botton, on his School of Life channels, recently laid out what he considers the most attractive quality in a partner. And it isn't looks or money or wit. It's emotional maturity. His portrait of it maps almost exactly onto everything we've been circling. So let me summarize the shape of it. Mature love, he suggests, can bear dependence. It can hand another person real power to hurt us because it trusts it would survive even if things fell apart. It practices clean anger, telling your partner clearly and at the time that they've upset you rather than going silent and disappearing. It keeps what he refers to as a charitable eye, assuming that the slight was probably tiredness or worry rather than malice. That bad outcomes often have innocent origins. It can hold itself accountable, which means it can do the hardest thing of all and simply apologize. It carries a certain cheerful pessimism, expecting love to be hard and everyone to be flawed, which makes a person patient and forgiving and funny, because why shout when none of us are angels? And above all, it believes in repair. When something breaks, the mature don't sulk for days. They come back to the table, they pick up the phone, and they try again, because they treat love as an act of pursuit first and as a feeling a distant second. Notice that not one of those is a personality trait you're born with. Every one is a skill, which is exactly de Botton's point, and mine. Emotional maturity isn't something age hands us. The lucky few absorb it in childhood, and the rest of us get to learn it in real time for the rest of our lives. Which brings us back to the dance floor and the image that I'll leave you with here. An effective partnership, like a good dance, has no set it and forget it setting. You choose each other on purpose, again and again. There will be nights when one partner is low and the dance still has to go on. And that's not a failure, that's the art of it. The two of you communicating through the movement, adapting to each other's energy, regulating together in real time. It only works if there's enough safety on the floor that either of you can be honest about where you are without the other one withdrawing or erupting. And it only works, this is the thing my whole argument has been walking toward, because each dancer holds their own balance. What looks like one person carrying the other is really two people, each centered in themselves, freely offering that steadiness to one another, back and forth, on and on. So, own your state, train your own emotions, keep your own balance, and then reach for your partner, fully present, ready to co-regulate, ready to repair, and ready to grow. And by the way, that right there, two people, each responsible for themselves and therefore able to be truly, safely present for each other, that is what emotional availability actually looks like. So what do you think? If you're partnered, this might be a conversation worth starting tonight. Not in the heat of a hard moment, but now while things are calm. So you've got a shared blueprint when the weather turns. I'd love to hear how it goes in the comments. I go deeper on vision, dialogue, and learning to dance through life together in my book, Surfing the Invisible Wave. You can find out all about it at invisiblewave.surf.